All right. Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Eldridge, and I have the privilege of being the president here at College of Marin. Thank you. And I also have the privilege of welcoming all of you to our beautiful Kentfield campus. I have a question for everyone. How many of you have either attended or have someone in your family who's attended College of Marin? There we go. That's right. We have been the community's college for 99 years now. Next year will be our centennial. You are all invited back for the many parties we're going to have. And as a way of introduction to our esteemed guests here today, I just want to say that as we reflect on our past and define our next 100 years at the college, we have three main things we're going to focus on. We want to be the best place to study and learn, and I think we're doing pretty well as we have the highest UC transfer acceptance rate in the state. And our students who are in our career technical education programs routinely and regularly have 30% wage gains once they complete their programs. But in addition to being the best place to study and learn, we also want to make sure we're a great place to work and grow. And we have a phenomenal faculty and staff, very diverse group of folks dedicated to education who work hard every day despite the threats at the national level and elsewhere. And finally, the third part of this is being a catalyst for positive community change. And that means that we are weighing in on important conversations, some of which you are going to talk about with our Congress members here today. Issues of affordable housing, of transportation, of mitigating our environmental impact, and ensuring that for the next 100 years of the college, we remain the community's college, where we fulfill our mission to ensure that we provide equitable opportunities and foster success for all members of our diverse community, despite the backwards rhetoric that suggests that in fact is not what we should be doing. And I pledge to you that as long as I'm the president, and as long as we have our dedicated folks working with us here today, and as long as we have the support of these folks, we will be resolute in our mission and practice mission fidelity. So, with that, part of being the community's college is hosting events like this, and I have to tell you, I am very pleased to turn it over now to a good friend and supporter of the college, your Congressman, Jared Huffman.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right. Now that's presidential leadership. I like that. So good to see all of you, and my friend Jamie Raskin and I are so glad that somehow George Soros found a way to get you all here and pay you to be here. Thank you for that. Thank you to College of Marin for being such a wonderful host. And thank you to Marin TV, because this is the largest venue we could find, and we could have filled a venue much bigger, but thanks to Marin TV, many more people are going to be able to join us. And of course, we'll be streaming this live on my congressional Facebook page as well. So folks, I have been doing a lot of these town halls and public meetings for the past 100 days. Part of the reason I'm doing so many of them is I love them. I think it's just the quintessence of democracy, really, to have you able to hold me accountable for the positions I take on your behalf, for me to have the connection with you and to hear from all of you, and for all of us together to show the rest of the country what a good civic discourse ought to look like. But I'll tell you, I think the main reason I'm doing so many of these, and I'm also doing political rallies and protests wherever I can as well, and the main reason is that I have never been more worried about the direction of our country. And I'll tell you, it's not just because my party lost the election. And unfortunately, my Democratic colleagues and I are in the minority right now. It's not just that. It's not even just the chaos and the corruption and the destruction of the policies that the Trump administration is pushing forward. It's the fact that democracy itself is under siege right now in ways many of us thought would never be possible in this country. And that's why this particular town hall is going to be a little bit different. We are focusing on threats to democracy and the Constitution and the rule of law. And the other thing that's different is I have brought in a ringer to share the stage with me. I will have more to say about my dear friend Jamie Raskin here in just a minute, but if you are here because you love this country and you want to be part of the growing nationwide effort to save our democracy and our Constitution, you are in the right place, and I thank you for joining us. So here's the program. I'll say a few more things about what's happening in Washington by way of getting us started, and then I'm going to hand off to Congressman Raskin and invite him to do the same thing. All of you should be thinking about the questions that you want to ask us, because after I take the liberty of starting a dialogue with Jamie with a few questions of my own, we will open it up to all of you. And just a little housekeeping. When it comes time to ask a question or make a comment, just raise your hand. I've got staff that are going to be working the room with remote microphones. They will tell you when it's time to step out to the aisle to ask your question or make your comment. Please try to keep it to 1 or 2 minutes. You can say almost anything in 1 or 2 minutes. If your question or comment has already been covered by others, think about letting someone else take a turn so that we can cover as much ground as we possibly can. And please respect the fact that my staff is under strict orders to hold on to the microphone and never let it go. We have learned that's very important to keep us moving. Just one last thing. Please be civil and respectful to each other. This, it should go without saying, but this is the public square. We get to define what the public square and a civic discourse ought to look like. And I want it to be a place where everyone always feels that they can safely and freely express themselves, even if they disagree with me. Okay, so if I were in your place right now, I'll tell you the two things I would want to hear from my representative in Congress. I would want to know, number one, do they understand what this moment is all about? And number two, what the hell are they doing about it? So I am going to kick us off as clearly as I can by just answering those two questions. I believe right now Donald Trump is trying to bully his way into a dictatorship that upends decades of political, social, and environmental progress. I believe he's doing that by pitting us against each other and using fear and lies, disinformation, and fake emergencies to consolidate power and to destroy any kind of resistance or political opposition. He knows he has absolute immunity because of this radical Supreme Court, and now he is using that to try to claim absolute power, to turn our government into something that serves him and the people he favors. Now, he's already normalized most of this with his MAGA base. They want him to be, some of them talk openly about wanting him to be an American Caesar. And the next step is to actually cross the Rubicon, right? To test the checks and the balances of our republic and see if anyone will stop him. And we're seeing that happen in so many different ways. We see it in the more than 100 legally dubious imperial edicts. He calls them executive orders. I refuse to dignify them with that term. These are imperial edicts. We see it in the way he is bringing historically independent agencies, including the Department of Justice and the FBI, under his direct personal control. We see it in the new fake federal agency, DOJ, and the wealthiest man in the world that has been empowered to ransack through the federal workforce, purging jobs, purging programs without authority, crippling key agencies. And we see it in the way he's testing Congress. You know, he understands that he has incredible power over the Republican Party right now and over the Republicans that have the majority in Congress. And so he is testing whether they will simply surrender their Article 1 authority to challenge him. And so far, they kind of have. When you talk about the power of the purse and oversight, when you talk about advice and consent for nominees, when you talk about any number of other things, so far, this Republican Congress is along for the ride. And then now, most recently, he is testing the Article 3 branch of government, the judiciary, to see if it can stop him. No president has ever directly defied a federal court order, much less a Supreme Court order, and Donald Trump is showing every sign of doing that right now. And he thinks he's got a very popular test case to do it with, because this man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is an undocumented immigrant, entered the country illegally, and Trump is accusing him, without proof, but accusing him of being a gang member. And so he thinks that's enough popular cover to go ahead and go where no president has gone before, to defy a final federal court order. He's trying to establish what I think is an unthinkable precedent, that on the basis of an accusation, precedent, on the basis of an accusation, he can round up and disappear people who are in this country. Here's the bottom line. No matter what you think of Abrego Garcia, no matter what you think of the federal bureaucracy or agencies like USAID, no matter what you think of the inefficiency and other problems with the Congress or any given federal judge, make no mistake, Donald Trump is putting us on a rolling constitutional crisis across the board, and if he gets away with all these different tests of the checks and balances in our country, if he gets away with the stuff that he's trying to do with the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to round people up and deport them without due process, and the political protesters who are seeing their green cards revoked simply because of their politics. If he gets away with all that, our country's going to look a lot more like 1930s Germany than the United States of America as we know it, and I don't say that lightly. So, this is not the chapter of American history I wanted any of us to experience. But as one of our great founders, I know one of Jamie Raskin's personal heroes, Thomas Paine, said in the darkest days of the American Revolution, the times have found us. And if you care about this country and oppose tyranny, we really have no choice but to face it and come together and find a way through. So what am I doing? I will just quickly tell you a few things. If there are two camps in the Democratic Party right now, as some have suggested, I think it's a little more complicated than that. But if there's two camps, I'm in the fight camp. And I want to tell you what that means. It means that I'm not betting everything, that if Democrats just play possum and allow Donald Trump to defeat himself by crashing the economy and betraying the working class with all of these tariff taxes and producing the worst stock market since the Great Depression, that will be his undoing, and Democrats should just let it happen and stay out of the way. I believe Democrats have to take the fight to Donald Trump using all the tools we have. And so that is happening back in Congress in three different ways. First, in Congress itself, we are using our committee work and our hearings to try to draw sharp contrasts with Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. I have some new responsibilities. I'm now the ranking member of the Natural Resources Committee. And so My job is to draw those contrasts and hold my Republican colleagues accountable for all of these bad policies that they are complicit in, and we are doing that in some very important ways. We are having shadow hearings. We are doing parliamentary maneuvers that I don't need to explain to you, but we're in the minority. We don't have the tools I would like, but we're using all of the parliamentary and other tools that we have to try to make our case. And we are trying to leverage all of our power on key votes. There's only a few points in this Congress where the Democrats will actually have power. So unity becomes very important. And I'm very proud of the way our House Democrats held together a few weeks ago on a very important government funding bill. The Senate did not do that, but House Democrats did. But our unity is super important. And the combination of all this, including all of our communications tools, is to draw that contrast for the American people and put pressure on our Republican colleagues to start working with us and to stand up to Donald Trump. We only need a few of them to do that. Now, the other front in which we're trying to confront this is in the courts. And many people ask me, why aren't you joining these lawsuits? Why aren't you in the courts? Well, often as member of Congress, as minorities in the Congress, we don't have standing to do that. But there was a recent imperial edict involving elections and democracy itself that we thought did give us standing. And so Jamie and I and our Democratic colleagues are plaintiffs in that lawsuit. And in other lawsuits, there's more than 130 of them. We're filing amicus briefs and coordinating with the litigants and doing everything that we can to make that a meaningful check on abuses of power and violations of the law. And then finally, public opinion. This may be the most powerful tool we have to work with right now. Abraham Lincoln famously said that public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. That's why Jamie and I and our colleagues are just constantly doing public events, trying to go into media platforms that many of us, aren't even familiar with in some cases. We are trying to reach people. We are trying to communicate, and we're trying to draw you in to a very, very important and broad public engagement. If you got ideas about other things I should be doing, I am all ears, but I think it's important that all of you are here today. I think this is a part of what we need in this moment, and I am going to urge you to consider it also a call to action. All of you already get it. You're already engaged enough to be here in the middle of a weekday, but we need you to tell your friends and family and your networks and be part of something that gets bigger and louder and really unleashes that awesome, peacefully unleashes that awesome power of public opinion. All right, so what a treat for me to introduce one of my great friends and allies in the Congress. Jamie Raskin was an amazing defender of our Constitution before he came to Congress. He was a stand up, Jamie. Jamie was a law professor. Jamie was a law professor and a constitutional scholar, and since he came to Congress in 2017, he's really emerged as one of the most eloquent, engaging, and impactful leaders in national politics. In the time that we have spent together, I have seen this guy overcome heartbreaking personal tragedy. I've seen him defeat cancer. I've seen him win a caucus election to be our ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. And I know many of you know him from the brilliant work he did as the lead impeachment manager. In the Senate trial of Donald Trump following the January 6th insurrection. That role made him obviously a national superstar, but it also landed him squarely on Donald Trump's enemy list. And that is no joke. It is a grim reality and something Jamie and his family have to live with every single day. So look, this guy is a dear friend and a confidant of mine. We supported and encouraged each other when we were each running for ranking member. We wanted to invigorate our Democratic caucus with some generational change. I am so proud that together, because we both value our secular constitution, back in 2018, we did something so important it had to be invented. We created the Congressional Free Thought Caucus to make sure that public policy is based on facts and reason and science, and that we oppose theocracy and encroachments of church-state separation. So, I think we are fighting for the kind of government that our Enlightenment era founders intended, and with great pleasure, I give you Jamie Raskin.
Well, hello. Hello, Marin County. Hello, hello. What an honor. Your county, your people are as beautiful as Jared Huffman's been telling me all these years. So I've never been here before, and I'm thrilled to be in your presence today. And I got to start by thanking you for sending the great Jared Huffman to the United States Congress. And he's not only the co-founder of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, he started the Stop Project 2025 task force a year ago. He was the first person, really the first person to blow the whistle on what was coming. This was not going to be just normal right-wing reactionary politics. This is going to be a complete attack on the Constitution of the United States and our system of government. And Jarrett mobilized everybody. He also pointed out the fact that they refused to release that last chapter of Project 2025, which was the first 100 days, right? But anyway, he's a remarkable leader on the environment, on natural resources, to keep California the shining example to the country that it is in terms of environmental law and policy. You know, I've been in politics long enough. It's funny, Jared talked about the generational change that our elections as the ranking Democrats heralded, and I realized I'm a 62-year-old grandfather, you know, and I guess that's what counts for generational change in the U.S. Congress. But you know, I've been in politics long enough now that I can recognize two kinds of politicians: power politicians and justice politicians. You have a justice politician in Jared Huffman. He's the real deal. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about what it's like, and a little bit about what I think we're going through, and then a little bit about what we're doing, and then we'll open it up. And I was reflecting about the State of the Union joint session that we just had a week or two ago. You were there, Jared, right? We were sitting next to each other, I think. But I brought with me, because you get to bring a guest, and I brought with me Dr. Lauren McGee, a constituent of mine in beautiful Montgomery County, Maryland, who is a doctor, chief biologist of a pediatric cancer unit at NIH, which is in my district, in Bethesda and Rockville. And she's been in the forefront of a lot of major breakthroughs in her field. And on February 14th, she was sacked by Elon Musk and by Doge. Happy Valentine's Day from Elon Musk and the Trump administration, along with tens of thousands of other employees. You know, when you're on probation, it sounds like it's something bad, like you did something bad, you know. You're on probation in the civil service because you got promoted or you just got hired, right? And so they considered her vulnerable, and so they just sacked her. Anyway, I brought her with me. We heard Donald Trump say at the beginning of his interminable 11-hour Fidel Castro-style address that day, we heard him say that wiping out pediatric cancer was one of his top priorities. And I have to tell you, I was ashamed in front of my guest. Even though I've done everything in my power to stop him, I was ashamed that we had to listen to this, and she had to listen to this as, you know, they fired these people with no due process. It's not just Abreu Garcia, it's the federal workers who get no due process. They're all fired en masse. She had nothing but superior professional evaluations. They get cut off from their health insurance, you name it, right? So I was ashamed, and I thought, well, maybe we should just leave, but decided to stay. Then we hear Donald Trump run through a litany of the great the savings that have been effectuated by him and Elon Musk, right? Well, of course, the first thing they did was they fired 18 inspectors general whose real job it is to fight waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. They saved us $91 billion last year. Elon Musk has not saved us $91 this year. In fact, the Trump administration is way ahead of spending than where we were last year. $150 billion ahead. They're driving us into a ditch, of course. Of course. You don't ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse by bringing in a bunch of juvenile computer hackers to ransack everybody's private data. That's got nothing to do with saving money for the people. But anyway, he's got this list, and he's going through the list, and then he arrives at one point, and he says, and we saved $8.5 million by stopping those people at NIH from creating transgender mice. Okay, and so this shocked me. I thought, maybe I am going to become a Republican today. Maybe I'm going to go over transgender mice. Why are we creating transgender mice, right? So I get in touch with my guest. I text her, no. She says, check this out, and I go online. He's referring, of course it's been debunked, but that means nothing to their speechwriters. He's referring to the creation of transgenic mice, okay, NIH. Mice that have been injected with DNA so we can do research on HIV and AIDS and breast cancer and colon cancer and asthma. We are being governed by morons, okay? So I resist the inclination to leave at that point. I stick it out, okay, and I leave and I get into my car outside and I hear like a crash. Turns out Speaker Mike Johnson's chief of staff has left the proceeding, gotten into his car, and plowed into the back of a parked police car at 38 miles an hour. Johnson, of course, sticks with them and says, that's fine. He's a loyal soldier. A reporter happens to be walking by and says, what do you think about this? And I said, it's very clear to me that we have way too many DUI hires in the Republican administration. Starting with Secretary Hegseth. This is what it is like, the chaos that's been unleashed on us. Our Constitution, as Congressman Huffman says, is under siege. Every day, under siege. They never mention the Constitution. They don't invoke it. They don't bother to talk about it. But they don't believe in it, right? Before you get to all of the unconstitutional things they're doing with their executive orders and practices and policies, don't skip over the fact that they can't be doing any of it anyway because Congress is the lawmaking power, not Donald Trump, not the president. Preamble says, We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and establish justice, ensure to our posterity the blessings of liberty, do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. That's the preamble. And then it leads into the first sentence of Article 1. All legislative power is vested in the Congress of the United States of America. All legislative power. The lawmaking power includes the power to regulate commerce domestically and internationally. We've got control over tariffs, not the President of the United States. He invoked IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, in a way it's never been used before. It's never been used for tariffs before. It's reserved for emergencies of an extraordinary and unusual nature. And when he came out to announce them, do you know what the emergency was of an extraordinary and unusual nature? This has been going on for 4 decades now, and we need to get rid of the way that we're being mistreated by all these countries. If it's been going on for 4 decades, how is that an emergency? If you think there's an emergency, if you think you need to change the law, come to Congress and make your case. Make your case to Congress, okay? We've got the power to declare war under Article 1 of the Constitution, not the president. He can't declare war on Venezuela by himself and then invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Congress has the power to declare war, and we were not invaded either. So we weren't at war, we weren't invaded, and as Judge Boasberg, that President Bush appointee, said, the Alien Enemies Act does not apply. And if it did apply, you still have to give people due process. We're not at war. There's no invasion. They didn't give due process. Bring Abreu Garcia back to the United States. We've got the power to raise revenue. We've got the power to set budgets. We've got the power of the purse. Congress has the power to spend money. If we decide that money is going to be spent on the Agency for International Development or Centers for Disease Control or for the NIH, you spend that money. You spend it because we authorized it, we appropriated it, and we programmed it. Now you get through all of that. You get to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and all other powers necessary and proper to the execution of the foregoing powers. Then you get to Article 2. It's like this big. And what's the key part of it? How you impeach a president for treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay? That's what it is. Now, when you get past Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy in times of actual conflict, okay, when you get past that, what is the core job of the President of the United States? To take care that the laws are faithfully executed. To take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Not twisted, not distorted, not deformed, not thwarted, not impounded, not diverted, faithfully executed. What we say to President Trump is, do your job. Do your job. So, sometimes our colleagues will say, well, we're 3 co-equal branches, which always sounds so pitiful to me. We're 3 co-equal branches. Really? First of all, co-equal is not even a word, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, the reason James Madison said that Congress is the predominant branch, and Congress is in Article 1, is because we overthrew a king. We understood the danger of executive power. We understood that. For the 3 co-equal branches, why do we have the power to impeach, try, and convict the president, and he doesn't have the power to impeach, try, and convict us? Right? They understood where the danger was, and that's where Article 3 comes in. It's emphatically the province and the duty of the Judicial Department to say what the law is. Chief Justice Marshall said in 1803 in Marbury versus Madison, that's the job of the court. And yet, you can listen to Trump himself or Vice President Vance. They all say, oh, well, the law, no, you can't tell the executive what to do. Really? You can't tell the executive what to do? In Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court said there's absolutely no problem with telling Secretary of State Madison that he's got to issue the judicial commission of Mr. Marbury. Of course, the courts can tell the president what to do, or Congress, or anybody who's violating the Constitution. That's the job of the court, to tell them what to do if they're violating the Constitution. The Bill of Rights is under attack too. That's why we're lucky we've got Jared Huffman in Congress. Right? The First Amendment is under attack. We know that. For the press, it's under attack. Right? You're not allowed to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico, or you'll be kicked out of the White House. You won't be able to cover us, right? Freedom of speech is under attack. People being shipped out of the country because they wrote an op-ed or because they appeared at a rally. Freedom of speech under attack, and we've got, as Jared says, Christian white nationalism on the agenda every day. We had a colleague who got up on the floor of the House, he said, the moral downfall of America was in 1962 in Engel versus Vitale, when the Supreme Court banned prayer in the public schools. And I was on the floor, I got up, I said, the Supreme Court never banned prayer in the public schools. As long as there are pop math quizzes, there will be prayer in the public schools. Anybody can pray whenever he or she wants to pray. All the Supreme Court said is the government cannot compel your students to participate, your kids to participate in a religious script that the government writes for them, because that might be against your beliefs and your faith. Louisiana, in a mega frenzy, voted to endorse the Ten Commandments and post the Ten Commandments everywhere. I knew it was going to happen. Our mega colleagues show up that Monday. We've got to endorse the Ten Commandments. We've got to post the Ten Commandments. I'm like, gee, the Ten Commandments have been doing fine for millennia without an endorsement by the U.S. House of Representatives and the Freedom Caucus. No, they insist. They say, well, the Ten Commandments are the basis of the Bill of Rights. Well, I mean, I know there's 10 in each, okay? I am aware of that, but let's test the proposition. The first commandment is, thou shalt have no other God before me. The First Amendment is, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. How does that fit? We go to the Rules Committee, they want an up or down vote on the Ten Commandments in the year of our Lord, 2025. I say, you know what? If we're going to vote on the Ten Commandments on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, we should have to vote on each commandment separately, okay? Not the omnibus package, and you shouldn't be able to vote for any commandment you yourself have ever violated before, because you'll be taking the name of the Lord in vain. I'm giving you a taste of our lives. All right. Well, anyway, look, here's the good news, my friends. Here's the good news. We are winning every single day. Every single day. We have 89 temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions across the land against this outburst of unconstitutional criminality and violation of the rights of the people. All across the land. I'll give you an example. Donald Trump purported to nullify birthright citizenship in America. The glory of the 14th Amendment, the first sentence of the 14th Amendment. He purported to get rid of that. That's been struck down by 4 judges, an Obama judge, a Biden judge, a Bush judge and a Reagan judge. The Reagan judge said that in his 4 decades on the bench, he had never seen an easier case, right? You don't need to be a lawyer, you just have to know how to read, okay? All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state in which they are born. The Abreu Garcia case was decided by Judge Boasberg, who was first appointed to the bench by President Bush, and they got him mad. They got him really mad because he ordered that those planes not take off. He ordered those planes be turned around, and they thumbed their nose at a United States district judge. And he initiated contempt proceedings against them. When people ask me what can be done when they defy court orders, watch Judge Boasberg, because he said, I find you in probable contempt of the United States and of this court. And he said, I'm going to call in all of the federal officials who are participating in this contempt against the court. And I am going to use every sanction available to me, a criminal sanction, a civil sanction. He's got the power to put people in jail. He's got the power to levy fines on people. He's got the power to slap liens on people's bank accounts. The federal courts are not without an arsenal of responses to people who act in contempt of the rule of law. And this is a very conservative judge. Now, our colleagues are saying, impeach these judges. We've got colleagues who have posters up outside of their office with federal judges' faces on them saying, wanted, and impeach these people. There have only been 15 judges impeached in American history. They're impeached for bribery, for tax evasion, for kickbacks, for corruption offenses. One was convicted of habitual drunkenness, not even occasional drunkenness, but habitual drunkenness. But there's never been a federal judge impeached and removed from office because somebody disagreed with his opinion. And here I'll quote Chief Justice Roberts, who came out 2 weeks ago, and he said, the correct response to disagreement with a federal district court judge is you appeal their decision. You don't try to impeach the judge. Much less do you put up wanted posters and begin to slander those judges and attack their families. We've had, Justice Amy Coney Barrett's sister got a death threat. We have justices and federal judges who are getting regular death threats now. It's not just members of Congress. It's across the board what's taking place. So look, my friends, we've got to restore the rule of law in America. Okay. And we got to stand up for the Constitution in America. And we got to stand up for the Bill of Rights. And I'm proud to see that lots of institutions are standing up. There's no safety in appeasement of these people. There's no safety in it. Paul Weiss, which was supposed to be the biggest, fanciest firm in the country, caved in. And then Wilmer Hale didn't cave in. Perkins Coie didn't cave in. They went to court. Trump's executive order said, we're not going to allow your lawyers in federal buildings and federal courthouses. We're not going to allow you to get a security clearance. You can't get federal contracts. You'll never get a federal job. And they went to court and they said, this violates the First Amendment. This violates the right to counsel. This violates due process. And they won. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. And I hope this great college will join with Harvard University in standing up for academic freedom across the country. So that's how we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to stand together. Solidarity is the watchword. I'm going to leave you with the aforementioned Tom Paine, who my son Tommy was named after. Tom Paine, he got here in 1774, 2 years before the revolution, and he fell in love with the promise of America. He said, if this land lives up to its principles and its values, it will become, he said, an asylum to humanity. Not an insane asylum, okay? But a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from political and religious and intellectual oppression all over the world. And he wrote in 1776, published on January 10th, Common Sense, the greatest pamphlet of our history, which ignited the American Revolution. And by common sense, he meant the sense we have in common when we're willing to reason together without dogma and superstition and what we would call today propaganda and disinformation and fake news and fake facts and all of that. And Washington had the troops reading Common Sense by campfire light at Valley Forge. But anyway, 1776, it was a tough year. The country was split down the middle. I'm reading an interesting book about this by H.W. Brown right now called The First Civil War, about how the revolution itself split the society. Half the people are running around saying, you cannot beat the kings and the queens and the autocrats. You cannot disentangle church and state. Everybody's always lived under the autocrats, people like Vladimir Putin and mad kings like King George or Donald Trump. Like that is the fate of humanity. That's the fate of humanity, they thought. And half of the people are saying, let's try something different in this land. Let's try something different. Let's try to have government rest on the consent of the governed, and to have the government protect the freedoms and rights of the people, life and liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everyone. Let's give it a try. Let's pledge to each other our property, our lives, our sacred honor to make that happen. But anyway, a lot of people felt there's no way we're going to get through the winter of 1776. You can't beat the greatest empire on earth that's ever existed. With all that money, you can't beat the richest man in the world. Right? It's not going to work. And Paine wanted to write a pamphlet to give people hope. And he wrote this beautiful pamphlet called The American Crisis. Just to quote a little passage for you, I will update the language pursuant to strict instructions from Nancy Pelosi, who said that Tom Paine was a feminist, and that he was. He was fighting for women's voting rights in the 18th century, and he was an abolitionist too. But anyway, Paine said, these are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country. But everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end will be our victory. Let's make that victory ours. Thank you, Marin County.
All right. All right, thanks everybody. We got more work to do. We got a little more work to do here. From all those lofty thoughts, let me take you to something very mundane. If you parked in the Woodlands parking lot, I am told that you might get towed. So think about that. All right, get your questions and comments ready, but I'm going to get us started with this one for Jamie Raskin. So we've been talking a lot about the rule of law and the constitutional order and democracy. I think everybody in this room understands inherently why those are things that we have to fight for in this moment. But some people are suggesting that for younger Americans, for people that are just struggling to make ends meet, that it's a little bit too abstract and academic, that we need to focus on the price of eggs and the costs and the 401ks. It seems like a false choice to me, but tell me why you think we've got to walk and chew gum. Why we've got to certainly talk about all these ways in which Trump policies are betraying the working class folks in their daily lives. But we got to fight for our democracy and make everyone understand why that's important. Do you agree?
I agree totally with that. And I understand I might be particularly at fault with this because I was a constitutional law professor for 25 years. I do have a constitutional prism, and I concede that. But when people pose this question to me, Jared, I say I don't really distinguish the two because I am out there fighting every day for democracy and for the achievements of democracy like Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and everything that we've been able to put into action. I suppose that goes back to fascism in the last century. People would say, well, yeah, I mean, Mussolini might be a fascist, but he makes the trains run on time, which apparently he didn't do. Anyway, the trains were not running on time. But the fact is, it's only democracy where people's needs can be met. A king is never going to meet the needs of the people. A fascist is not going to meet the needs of the people. A Nazi is not going to meet the needs of the people. And if they do as a passing thing, it's like, Trump in the election, and I'm not calling him a Nazi, because I think that was the last thing I just mentioned. But Trump in the election, said, I'm going to lower the price of eggs. Well, first of all, Donald Trump doesn't know the price of eggs. He doesn't know the price of anything, except for the price of the presidency. I think it was $280 million that he sold it for to Elon Musk. But the point is that they can assert that they're going to make life better for people, but they're not going to do it. His presidency is a racket. It's a for-profit enterprise for the people who've gotten in, beginning with Elon Musk. Okay? It's for them. It's not for us. It's for them. It's not for us. And so we've got to be very clear about it. The price of eggs has never been higher in America, and the price of eggs Benedict is unsustainable in the country.
All right, let's go to your question.
Okay, we have one right here.
Right there.
Can you hear me? Is the mic on? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, my name's Kathy Ferrando, and I have a former student who's a dreamer, and he's just finishing the national naturalization process, but he is really worried about going in this summer when he's supposed to turn in. And I want to know what you can advise for him because he has a family, wife, kids here, and he can't go back to the country that he came from. So
when is his appointment? When's his interview?
Excuse me, I'm sorry?
Did you say he's going in for his
The
naturalization?
interview is the end of the summer.
Yeah. I think it's a little too early to advise you or him about that, but be in touch with us because we're monitoring that very closely. We do understand there have been some people picked up in that scenario, but other people have been able to go through. So I think we need a very fact-sensitive answer to your question.
And my office is happy to work with you to make sure we're looking out for his interests. All right. Who's next? Colin, I think, is your mic working? All right, we'll go here while we're getting that mic going. Yeah.
Okay. Town halls and protests are great, but I believe we need to take away something concrete from them. So I might have two questions. What are we doing to have voter registrations as part of town halls and protests? Second, what are we doing to have a nationwide voter registration campaign now? Regardless of what happens with the SAVE Act, we will wish we did this now. Thank you.
So I think voter registration at every public event is a great idea, and so I will work with some folks to try to make that a feature of these things as we go forward. in terms of the SAVE Act and the broader challenges of registering to vote, if these guys have their way, let alone actually voting, we got the right guy here because as our top Democrat at the Judiciary Committee, Jamie is really the tip of the spear in pushing against that. So let me defer to him.
Yeah, thank you. We've got to be doing voter registration in every possible context, as you say. Of course, it's a lot easier in California than it is in Mississippi or Alabama. There are a lot of states that have been making it extremely difficult to register a vote. That's also part of the purpose of the so-called SAVE Act, which we fought on the floor of the House and we hope is just going to crash into Democratic filibuster on the Senate side. The SAVE Act is a remarkable piece of legislation because it claims to be addressing the widespread problem of illegal alien voting, okay? But nobody has any cases of illegal alien voting. I guess they found a few cases of people sneaking in to vote for Donald Trump. But in any event, here's their answer to this essentially non-existent problem. Their answer is to require that everybody bring to the polls in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, everywhere, documentation of what their name is now, what their name is at birth. So your birth certificate, passport, or driver's license, and if they don't match, as is the case for 80% of married women, then you need to produce your marriage certificate, okay, in order to explain why your birth certificate doesn't match with your passport. This is a clear violation of the 19th Amendment and women's right to vote in America, okay? So anyway, we're going to do whatever we can to stop it while we push at the state level for laws to allow people to vote. You know, I don't know how many people have lived abroad, but in most of the democratic countries on earth, the government takes responsibility for registering people. Like if you're born in France, you are registered immediately at birth. When you turn 18, you just go start voting. That's it includes universal health care there, and it includes your version of Social Security from the beginning. Here, we make it like an obstacle course for people to vote. There's some states where they throw you off the rolls if you miss an election. And you might miss an election because they keep you from voting because they don't think your signature matches the last signature or on your driver's license, and on and on and on. It's just a series of tests. It's like a board game or something. When we get through this nightmare, we need a constitutional amendment guaranteeing everybody's right to vote in America against all the games.
Yeah, let me just add that we also have some legislation that we passed out of the House 2 Congresses ago. I believe it was called the For the People Act, but we also had the John Lewis Voting Rights Act as well. Things that would go down to the state level and prohibit them from doing all this voter suppression and throwing wrenches into the works of democracy. Let's go to our next question. Do we got the mic working? Okay.
Hi, and welcome. I have 2 basic questions. The first is, what are both of you and all of the Democrats doing to raise engagement for people who are younger? As you see, Marin is here, and most people are on Social Security, likely, as I am, and we're on a college campus with very many younger people. I told my daughter about this event. She's just over 40. Most of the people in here are way younger than we are. And as she has told me, she has seen nothing about this event on Instagram and Facebook and other platforms that younger people are watching and getting a lot of disinformation from, lies, propaganda, etc. So I would like you to speak to that across the country, not just here at Blue Marin.
You got a second part?
The second part is, I feel we're near the bottom of the slippery slope we've been going down for probably 40 years or more. Sped up in the last 10. We've been anti-Trump for 10 years now. And what's going to be next? Because I don't have a lot of trust and
let me start. Thank you. You know, the challenge of getting young people to be engaged and understand everything that is at stake is a really important one. Too many of them tuned out and didn't understand why they should have voted in the last election. And possibly, quite possibly, there was alienation in lots of ways. But here's the deal. They get information in ways that I think the Democratic establishment just sort of didn't see coming. There's been a fundamental shift in how people get and consume news, and I think my colleagues and I have to start meeting those young people in the places where they are. We are trying to get better and smarter about that, but I'll just say this one extra thing. I think we're talking about making young people understand the importance of democracy and voting and civic engagement. Obviously, that's not just on members of Congress, that's on all of us, in our families and in our communities. It's going to take all of us to make that happen. Jamie?
Let me add only this. I come also from a blue district, and on my campaign, I spend no money on pollsters, polling, TV, radio, none of that stuff. My campaign is a school for young people called Democracy Summer. It's for high school and college and apprentice age kids to come and learn about the history of the civilizing movements of American life, and then to figure out what's going on today in terms of the struggle to defend strong democracy and freedom in the country. And we are in 42 states. And
you're in my district.
I'll
have 12 high school and college students going through Jamie's program this summer.
So, yeah.
Next question back here, Congressman.
Hi, I am a former Forest Service employee. It was an honor and a great financial sacrifice. Every day I had people mad at me for being a waste of money. I even had a Republican congressman ask me what it was that we did exactly. People will fight for the NPS, but they don't know what the Forest Service or other agencies like NOAA do. The USFS keeps rural towns alive, brings in obscene amounts of tourism money to states, and allows for equitable nature access and foraging for our vulnerable communities. The Forest Service couldn't even hire its seasonal staff before the illegal firings. People who work part-time, part of the year, for multiple years to even become the level that got fired. And those seasonal staff workers fight fires. My partner was a trail crew worker until we couldn't afford for him to do that anymore, and he would risk his lives and save taxpayers' money, and people would tell him that he was stealing from them. My question, as someone who works with conservation agencies, as a woman, small business owner, and granddaughter of immigrants, constantly giving away my expertise for free while I cry in grocery stores because I can't afford them, what you're going to do to change democratic messaging to speak to the benefits of our environmental agencies to everyday Americans, because we'll have no future as humans if we don't fund them and make it clear how they are valuable to us.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, first I want to thank you for your passion and your empathy about our federal workforce. Our civil servants deserve our respect and our appreciation for the work they do. And one of the most awful things about what we're seeing right now is the dehumanization of civil servants who work for us, who make our lives better every single day. And unfortunately, the public is being told that they are part of a deep state, part of an administrative state that is all about power and control, and that they are a waste of taxpayer dollars. One of the things we're trying to do is push back against the inhumanity of the way these employees have been treated, in many cases summarily fired. Sometimes they're fired in ways courts have ruled are illegal. They're put back on the job. And then Elon Musk and Donald Trump have put them on administrative leave, so you continue to pay their salary, but they're not able to do the work we need them to do. That's how cynical this is. So, look, on the environmental agencies that you asked about, we're not saving money when you're paying someone to stay at home, obviously.
You're not paying someone, you're not saving money where you're paying contractors to fight fires that cost substantially more.
We will, yeah, there are enormous downsides and costs that will present themselves on fire and so many other things. You brought up NOAA and the environmental agencies, so as the ranking member at the Natural Resource Committee, I am doing my best to shine a bright light on just how dumb this attack on NOAA, as well as other environmental agencies, is. NOAA makes it possible for us to have safe air travel, to have weather forecasting, to make sure that ships, including nuclear submarines, don't run aground, because we have good ocean mapping and data sets that tell us what ocean currents are doing. It is such a vital scientific agency in so many ways, and it is our main climate science repository. That's probably why it's such an extreme threat to these guys. So we'll use every tool we can to defend NOAA, to defend the employees at NOAA and other environmental agencies, and we will work with the people who are going to court and so far winning to try to keep these agencies together. And to anyone here who's a federal employee and is impacted by this nonsense, thank you for your service, and we're going to do everything we can to have your back. Jamie, you want to add to that?
So I've got 55,000 federal workers in my district. So your words strike me deeply, and thank you for your service. You know, one of the first things they did when they got in was they sacked the head of the FAA because they had called Elon Musk and one of his businesses on regulatory violations. And these are the first round of attacks was on people who had actually enforced the law and regulations against Elon Musk. But they got rid of the head of the FAA and his inner coterie, and 3 weeks later, we had the first fatal air crash in America in the last 17 years. And we've had a record number of close calls and air collisions since then. Well, look, it's the air traffic controllers, it's the Forest Service workers, it's the cancer researchers at NIH, it's the food and drug safety inspectors at the FDA and at the Department of Agriculture, on and on down the line. They want to sack all of them. They want to put in political sycophants and loyalists to the president. They want to run it like a monarchy or an authoritarian state. They want to privatize whatever services remain in order to make money on it. And the only good news here is the American people are rebelling against this. They thought they would get away with it, but guess what? When the American people call Social Security, they want someone to pick up the phone, okay? And they want to be able to go to a Social Security office. And no, we don't want to dismantle Medicaid, which millions of Americans of all ages depend on. These are the achievements of democracy that we've got to protect.
Okay, next question's over here, Congressman. However, Congressman Raskin needs to step out for 5 minutes over here, Congressman. Congressman Raskin needs to step out for 5 minutes, and then he will come back.
And
in
the reason
meantime,
he's doing that is we have a Democratic caucus meeting virtually right now, and Jamie's very important to a lot of the work we do on the legal front right now.
Okay, so democracy
But he'll
happens.
be right back.
Yeah, democracy happens.
let's
Here's
do-
your next question.
Thank you. I'm wondering, with countries with national health care, their corporations must be very relieved not to have to cover all of their employees. And I wonder if we can strategize with our corporations instead of, we all make them the enemy, but perhaps this would be a bridge for us to finally get national health care if we got the corporations behind it.
What a great idea. It's almost like we should have Medicare for all. I agree with you. I'm for a national health insurance. Just a couple thoughts about your question. First, I would love to get back to the point where we can debate these things in a democracy, where we actually have a chance of moving good policy ideas through the democratic process, putting them on a president's desk, getting them enacted into law. I just sort of think, as important as all that is, probably the most important fight right now is to make sure we save this darn democracy so we can do that. And then let's get to work. Because one of the things we can remind people of is that we already have an awful lot of national health insurance. You know, this fight we have right now to save Medicaid, which is one of our strongest political arguments to try to get House Republicans to push back on Donald Trump and start working with us. It's because a third of America gets their primary health insurance from Medicaid. It is a federal health insurance program, 1/3. Now you throw in Medicare, you throw in the VA, you throw in children's health insurance. We are well on our way. It's fragmented, and it could be a lot more efficient, a lot better, but we're well on our way to national health insurance. We can demystify it and make those arguments once we get our democracy back in place and hopefully make some progress.
Next question over here, Congressman.
Back there, okay.
Oh, hello, Congressman. We're all looking forward to the upcoming election in 2026, where we hopefully
Inshallah.
can change Congress, get Democratic majorities. But what can Trump do to thwart us, to rig the elections? Can he do things? What are they, besides the voter issues that we were just talking about?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So will Donald Trump try to keep us from having a free and fair midterm election in 2026? Yeah, I kind of think so. And it's obvious from the imperial edict that he did on voting, where he's trying to just claim federal authority over elections in ways that he has no legal authority to do, and in ways that violate the Constitution's delegation of that authority to the states. The states have primary authority for election systems and for the counting of votes and all of these other things. So we're going to have to fight this out in the court, and this is one where my Democratic colleagues and I are actually in the court through our leadership as plaintiffs to fight that fight. I think we're going to win, but I don't think that means we are in the clear by any stretch. There's a number of ways that are not that hard to imagine where Donald Trump could try to invoke emergency authorities or try to weaponize the Department of Justice or do any number of other things to interfere with free and fair elections, either in particular states and areas. He's proposed that in California, by the way. You know, we had our terrible Los Angeles fire. We have a huge amount of federal disaster relief that we are owed that needs to come our way. Donald Trump and House Republicans have suggested, for the first time ever, conditioning that federal disaster relief on changes in California's voting laws. So there's just all sorts of ways. We've got to be on high alert on this one. And the other thing is, as much as I am encouraging everyone to engage and show up at rallies and protests, we got to be smart about how we do that too. Because I think this guy is itching to invoke emergency authorities and roll the military and do other things that are a setup for either delaying or canceling elections, and we can't let that happen, obviously.
Okay, back here.
Yeah, Congressman, it seems like a long time until midterms, given the speed of these destructive things that are going on. Are you or any of the other Democratic Congress people having meaningful, deep conversations with Republican Congress people? And if not, why not? And if you are, do you see any glimmer of light where 1, 2, 3, 5 will separate themselves from the cult and come over to enact and protect our democracy and all the other destructive things?
So I would love that. I really would love to find some Republican partners in pushing back on all of this abuse of power and corruption and everything else. I will tell you right now, it kind of feels like one hand clapping. I think there's a great desire to find the Liz Cheneys and the Adam Kinzingers and the others who are brave enough to push back on Donald Trump. The problem is, almost to a person, they have been eliminated by Donald Trump. It's part of how he has ascended this second time around and achieved such total control. So it's very important that we change that we sort of reestablish some of these basic principles that ought to unite us regardless of political party. I mean, Jamie Raskin has become friends with Liz Cheney, all right? And I think that's a great thing, because this is not about left versus right, it's about right and wrong. So we will keep trying. But I will be honest, the environment of coercion and intimidation and threats, and you saw what happened with the senators who definitely did not want to confirm Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and so many of these other folks, Robert Kennedy Jr., and the kind of pressure and intimidation that was brought to bear on them and the way they ultimately buckled. I'm afraid that right now that's just the reality in this Republican Congress, and we should not hold our breath for them to save us. We got to save ourselves.
Hi. I'm sorry, Senator, that Jamie Raskin's not here for this as well, but please talk to him too. Citizens United, which has allowed so much money from, we've become a corporate oligarchy practically. This money is coming in from foreign people, from corporations, from people all over in amounts that we don't know how much, we don't know from where it comes. And if Citizens United is not overturned, this will continue and we will lose our democracy, our democratic republic. And I understand that citizens' democracy to be revoked over whatever, it has died. It's in a coma in a committee for a few years. How do we get this back on track and get rid of Citizens United fast? Because if we don't get that foreign and corporate money out of here right away, this is going to continue to happen.
But I only heard half of it, but that was an awesome question. Citizens United converted every corporate treasury in America into a potential political slush fund for the CEO. And that overturned 2 centuries of understanding of what a corporation is. I mean, a corporation, Chief Justice Marshall said in the Dartmouth College case back in 1817, said, is an artificial entity, invisible, intangible, existing only in contemplation of law, not possessing the constitutional rights of the people. Okay? And they inverted that. They overturned it. So there's 2 ways we can scrap Citizens United. One, if we've got a new Supreme Court, which would be good if we could make it happen, but that's a long process. The other is we pass the 28th Amendment to the Constitution and say a corporation is not a person and money is not speech. Okay, so.
Okay.
I'm going to add one thing. I agree with all of that for sure, but we've got a lot of work to do on the dark money, on just the total loss of ethics and any semblance of campaign finance reform. When Elon Musk is running around in key states and giving people millions of dollars if they just show up as a MAGA voter, that just tells you how far we have fallen right now in the wake of Citizens United and so many other things. When Donald Trump is able to control the FEC, when they're able to fire the ethics folks, we've got to reclaim all of this stuff, and obviously we've got to do some legislating when we are able to take back Congress, and we will absolutely do what we can to either amend the Constitution or get a new Supreme Court.
Okay, over here.
Hi, my name is Jessica Gerber. I work with Brady United Against Gun Violence. Thank you. All of us are sitting here feeling pretty comfortable, but if we don't do something, the Second Amendment is going to overtake the First Amendment. I know that in the last several years, the last administration, thanks so much to the 2 of you and your colleagues, we made great, incredible strides in keeping our country safe from gun violence. And this administration is doing everything they can to roll all of that back. I would like to know what you're doing in Congress to fight that.
Awesome.
So, I haven't checked Jamie's voting record on this, but I'm willing to bet that he and I are all co-sponsoring the same bills to try to ban assault weapons and try to impose common sense gun safety standards and background checks and any number of other things that just ought to be so obvious. But you're absolutely right. The Second Amendment has been wildly distorted, and it has taken us to a dark and very dangerous place in this country. So having a new Supreme Court at some point will probably help with that. But even in the wake of some bad Supreme Court decisions, there's still room for a Congress and a president to put a lot of common sense reforms in place. And we just need to get the votes and win some elections to make it happen. I promise you we're committed to that.
And, but just to add, the vast majority of the American people agree. We need a universal violent criminal background check on all gun sales in America. That's more than 90% of the people. And what's blocking us from getting that is not the Second Amendment. What's blocking us is the NRA and the GOP. Okay? The vast majority of people want a ban on violent military-style assault weapons in America. The vast majority of Democrats, Republicans, gun owners, non-gun owners, it's not the Second Amendment stopping us. Again, it's the NRA and the GOP's distortion of the Second Amendment. Sometimes we'll be in these debates on the floor and a colleague will get up and say, oh, you know, Raskin wants us to repeal the Second Amendment. I don't want you to repeal the Second Amendment. I want you to read the Second Amendment, okay? That's all. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Justice Scalia has said, Justice Rehnquist said that the Second Amendment is perfectly compatible with common sense gun safety regulation to keep public schools, public buildings, courthouses safe, and all of them had said it's completely consistent with a background check to make sure that we're not putting guns in the hands of the wrong people. So we don't need to amend the Constitution. We need a Congress that will be willing to stand up to the NRA. That's where we are.
Next question over this way.
Hi. My friends and I thought maybe we were reading The Onion when we saw on AP News that Social Security was going to be communicating with Americans through X. Is that true? And if
I've
so,
heard the
what does
same
that mean?
rumor. I'm going to have to verify it. But look, nothing surprises me anymore. So we'll find out. I don't know if it's true or not.
I don't know the direct answer to the question, but it gives me a quick opportunity to say a word about Elon Musk and the Silicon Valley billionaire mafia of Peter Thiels and Mark Andreessen and their intellectual hero, Curtis Yarvin. This guy did an interview with the New York Times, I think 6 or 7 weeks ago now, where he said the American people have to get over their fear of the word dictatorship. Okay? He said a dictator is just like a CEO of a corporation, and that works great for us, and we need a CEO dictator for the country who's going to report, by the way, not to the people, but to the other CEOs. They have a vision of a corporate state. So I don't know whether or not what you said is true or not, but it's certainly within the spirit of everything that we see coming out of that Silicon Valley mafia and the Trump administration right now.
By the way, both of us are reachable on Blue Sky, if anybody wants to find us.
Right here.
Hello, my name is Jeff Stone, and I actually have a question for both of the Congress. You're both in relatively safe areas in blue states, and you have great reception and great support. Some of your Republican colleagues that are practicing in fear right now don't have that support, and they're not doing these open houses. What is your plan, and maybe going into some of their districts here in Northern California? There's a couple of Republicans, and I believe.
Good question.
In Maryland, there's one Republican district. I think they would like to hear from you.
Andy Harris's district.
I've already been there, my friend. I went 2 weekends ago. I was in an auditorium like this. There were 1,000 people there. They had turned hundreds of people away. And I got up and I said, I know I wasn't your first choice. They brought up a milk carton with Andy Harris's face on it. And I said, if your name is on the ballot, your face should not be on the milk carton. And I spent 4 hours there with the great people of the 1st District of Maryland and Eastern Shore. But I've also been to Pennsylvania 7, in the district in Allentown, and other areas up in there. And I'm going to New York 1, the 1st District, Long Island, and the people there sent me an article with the congressman who said that he's not getting any complaints in his office about an inability to get through to Social Security or any other federal government office. So I'm going to go and I'm going to set some things straight in the beautiful 1st District of New York on Long Island.
And I am going to do the same. In fact, I was working on plans to go to our Republican colleague Kevin Kiley's district recently, but then Bernie Sanders and AOC showed up. And this is a team sport, but those two have kind of a displacing effect. I will keep working. I'll definitely show up in some other places.
Next question's over here. Hi, I'm a family physician in a community health center, a federally qualified health center, and I really appreciate Congressman Huffman's support, and I'm guessing Congressman Raskin also, but Congressman Huffman specifically is very supportive of us and our work. I'm also extremely proud of our state because we extend care to many, many people who wouldn't have otherwise, including all our immigrants with a low enough income and also people with cancer and serious diseases who don't otherwise qualify. So my obvious question to you is, is there a real plan for standing up to the Republicans who are trying to cut Medicaid? Because honestly, all of us, every single day, we know what's going to happen. California, for all that we do, is not going to be able to sustain a lot of those things. And our patients that we've been able to take care of over the last few years are going to drift away. They're already afraid to come in. So, I think one of the things that disengages our young folks, like my 19-year-old college friends, he's pretty engaged, but his friends may not be, is that they see that our Democrats compromise over and over and over again. And while I really believe in compromise, in this case, compromise means our patients' lives, and we can't give the care we want to every single day. So thank you again, and that's my question.
Well, thank you. Let me just say that our rural health clinics are the backbone of healthcare and our social safety net in my district and in so many other parts of America. So thank you for what you do. No way will I compromise on any cuts to Medicaid. But what are we going to do about it to try to peel off 3 or 4 Republicans who will join us and push back? Because they are absolutely on a course to deeply cut Medicaid. We got to keep doing stuff like this all over the country. We got to do it in Republican districts. They got to start feeling the heat. And the good news is it looks like they are starting to feel the heat. We're getting statements and letters from significant numbers of vulnerable Republicans that they will not support Medicaid cuts. Now, there's always a little ambiguity in what they say. Of course, we support eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. We won't cut benefits. We'll cut bureaucracy. They have other ways in which they've hedged. We got to make it clear that we're not going to fall for that, because I think they are lying. I really think in order to get the numbers they need to do their big billionaire tax cut, they've got to try to deeply cut into Medicaid, and we cannot let them call it anything else other than a cut to Medicaid. David Valadeo in the Central Valley, one of my Republican colleagues, won his last election, I think, by less than 10,000 votes. He's got nearly 300,000 constituents on Medicaid. So it is about accountability and making sure that we make them feel the heat on Medicaid, and frankly, a whole bunch of other things too. But Medicaid is one of our strongest weapons. Do you want to add anything, Jamie?
Okay, over here. Over here, Congressman.
We're trying to move through the room as best we can. Let's see if we can get someone over here.
Okay, we've got one here while she gets over there.
So thank you for what,
There I am.
thanks for the inspiring words, and I really appreciate the positions that you are taking. However, my view is the Democratic Party is failing to provide a cohesive, strong, outspoken resistance to Donald Trump. I receive on the order of a dozen emails or text messages from Democratic politicians per week. All they're doing is asking for money.
Yeah.
They're not organizing anything. Now, decades ago, I was part of the anti-Vietnam War protest movement, and through mass organization, we successfully overthrew an administration. I hear Hakeem Jeffries being quoted as saying he will not oppose any Democratic incumbent, regardless of what position they're taking on fighting or giving in to Trump. The Democratic Party's media strategy is unsuccessful. If you look I read most of the major newspapers every day, and there's almost no coverage of a strong leader on the Democratic side being outspoken outside of legislative hearings. So, with a 43% approval rating, Trump is still the strongest force around. And I want to know what you two are doing, not legislatively, but to get the Democratic Party to become a more powerful and cohesive force.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Obviously, we hear this a lot. This is a tough time to be a Democrat in Congress because we got our butts kicked in the election, and we are taking our lumps as a result of losing that election, and we are struggling. We are struggling with some of these questions. I will just say this in response. First, the Democratic Party, when you hear those words, it is a complex organism, folks. I am one little fiber of it, and Jamie is too, and we are trying our best to infuse courage and principle and vision and fight into this complex organism, and we've got a lot of other colleagues that are doing a great job in that fight with us. I will just say that you asked about Hakeem Jeffries. His position as our party leader is no different than Nancy Pelosi's when she was our speaker and our leader. One of the job requirements is you support your incumbents. You don't grow your caucus by losing members, and that just kind of goes with the territory. So I would not read anything at all into the fact that he's going to support every Democratic incumbent in the next election. But I see a lot of fight in Hakeem Jeffries and many of our other leaders, and I think the more you see him, in fact, I'm urging Hakeem to get out there in rallies of his own, because I will tell you, Hakeem is a little bit like, Jamie Raskin. He is a phenomenal communicator, and he is able to inspire folks and motivate them. And so I think we've got no shortage of talent, and we are working our way through the communication strategies and other things that I hope will provide a compelling answer to your question. We're doing our best. Jamie? Cory Booker's filibuster was great, by the way.
So, as I mentioned, my district's on the border of Washington. So, my constituents have been hit from the very first day with this nightmare. I went to what I think is the first protest which was at NOAA, which is in my district. And I went and I said, my motto for this period is going to be, a rally a day keeps the fascists away. Okay? And so that sense of fight that we all understand we need, I've felt from the very beginning of this. In terms of the Democratic Party, it's always hard to be the out party. The in party, and this is even before we get to a period of authoritarianism, the in party has a president who everybody follows. We have a lot of great leaders. And Cory Booker's doing his thing. My friend Chris Van Hollen from Maryland just flew to El Salvador. Like Jared says, AOC and Bernie have been out there, but I don't mean to just focus on them because it's dozens and dozens of people. But it is not, as you're saying, sir. I'm looking for you now. But it's not as you're saying. You say, well, where's the strong person? I'm not sure we're going to get that. I hope we have several hundred strong leaders who emerge during this period in Congress, in the governor's houses, in the state capitals, and also civil society. And let me just close with that thought, okay? Because you referenced the Vietnam War, which began for America, not for France, but for the Vietnamese and for the French. It was long before that, but for America, really in 62 or 63. That war didn't end for 12 years. It was a long time to stop that war. Or think about World War II, where Churchill's running around saying, we've got fascists in Italy, we've got Nazis in Germany, we've got Franco in Spain, and it took years to rouse the American people, and Pearl Harbor before the American people focused on the threat of fascism. I invited to come talk to the Democratic caucus some historians, and I posed the question, how do democracies defeat authoritarian takeovers and right-wing coups? It was very interesting. They said, well, if you've got an effective inside strategy, a legislative strategy, a judicial strategy, you can win about a third of the time. If you've got an effective nationwide civil resistance opposition strategy, and that's all, you can win about a third of the time. But if you have an effective inside political, legislative, judicial strategy combined and coordinated with a nationwide civil resistance strategy and leadership there, you can win more than 2/3 of the time. So it's not a guarantee, but we need to be fighting to lift up the leadership all over the country that's going to enable us to stop this madness coming out of the White House.
We were going to try to get over here, right?
Over here.
Hi, I have just two quick things to say. To Congressman Raskin, thank you for writing Unthinkable. And to both of you, thank you for your courage. It really is contagious.
Thank you. And everyone should buy Jamie's book. Okay. We're trying to get there.
Okay, go get
let's
the
get a
students.
microphone
Is that
over
the
there, Gabby.
students over there? Please go get the students.
All right, we'll
Okay.
come to you right after.
Yeah.
Over
and
here.
then we're getting
okay?
down to the last couple questions. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Raskin and Mr. Huffman. My name is Dr. Maria Michael. Ya'ate Washte. I'm an indigenous spiritual leader of the Lakota and Dene Nation, and I pray right now that we're standing on the land of many ancestors of the Wichani, Ohlone, Mumeka, Pomo, and coastal Miwok, and they're not being recognized, so we say that. We also want to say thank you, Mr. Raskin, for staying with the impeachment in spite of all the pain you went through in your own family, in spite of the cancer, in spite of everything that you have been through. You have stood strong. We thank you. And the Constitution was written and copied and joined by the Algonquian Council of Iroquois Confederacy, and that's never mentioned. And what we want to say to Congressman Huffman, We don't want to hear that it's hard. I'm on the streets every single weekend fighting. I've been fighting since Vietnam War. We have to fight. If my ancestors didn't fight, I wouldn't be here alive to help support you. This is my country. And don't you say it's too hard. Get your butts all out there. Everybody, every Democrat, get out there. I don't care. Someone has to start enforcing things. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Musk and Trump have got to go. Let's stop this.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jane, and I am an executive member of Common Good. We're kind of a new group on campus for political advocacy. You guys have been saying, specifically, Congressman Huffman, you said, my ears are open. And so I'm wondering, how can student advocacy groups best communicate with local leaders and representatives to change? Because I have emailed your office before recently, and I'm having a hard time getting anywhere. And so I'm just curious how we can, as students, organize these rallies to have, one rally a day keeps the fascists away.
Yeah, look, thank you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you are engaging, and I want every young person and student to do the same thing. So, look, hold me accountable to that. If we didn't get back to an email, we'll figure out why that happened, and we will fix it. I do get about 8,000 emails a week. Not even exaggerating, but that's okay. We still are trying to find ways to process and be responsive and accessible. And as far as connecting with young people, I also welcome your ideas. I'm trying to do what I can. Jamie's Democracy Summer is a great model. It's something that I've embraced. We want to. It's not too late. The deadline is when, like a few days from now. So we're still taking applications. If you know a young person who wants to be a Democracy Fellow, they get a $500 stipend, and they learn about politics in seminars, and they learn how to organize and do all kinds of things, and it's a pretty great experience. But I welcome your ideas. If you want me to come to your class, I love that. I do middle school, high school, college. I know. I love it. And I had a little middle school town hall just this week at Del Mar Middle School in Tiburon, and it was like I was talking to college level folks. It was really awesome, and I want to do more of it.
Okay, we're down to our last two questions. This one right here, and then that one.
Congress people, thank you so much for being here. My name is Marcus Arana, and I am a transgender American. I am female to male, transitioned 30 years ago, so let me tell you how these imperial edicts are affecting me. After May 7th, I won't be able to fly anywhere because I can't get a real ID, because my birth certificate won't be changed because I'm from the state of Alaska. Secondly, the last time that Trump was president, he cut off my hormones that were covered by Medicare because I am transgender, because he disapproved of the diagnosis. Lots of men get their hormones paid for by Medicare, but I didn't. What I want you to do is I want you to work with my niece Latifah Simon and tell her that Uncle Marcus sent you.
I will.
And I want you to think about a body sovereignty bill that allows all people the right to choose to do to their bodies what they want to do to their bodies. That will protect women with reproductive rights. That will protect people who want to have in vitro. And that will protect people like me. Thank you.
You're here. Hey, thank you. Thank you for being here. You are welcome here, and believe me, Jamie Raskin and I are appalled by the way the trans community has been singled out and vilified and targeted with all of these crazy policies. So there was a little bit of good news today, a court decision that said that, at least as it relates to passports, I'm not sure it applies to other forms of ID, they cannot do that to you. And so it's, we will support that litigation. We will push back against bigots that we serve with in the Congress, and we will try to make sure that you're treated as a human being with all of the same rights and civil rights as the rest of us.
Last question is back here.
Hi there.
I am a Jewish mother of 2 Jewish students. Thank you both for being mensches in what you do in Congress. But the Trump administration is using the guise of fighting anti-Semitism to coerce and threaten our colleges and our universities and to persecute students who use their rights of freedom of speech. As 2 Jewish representatives in Congress, I urge you to stand up and call this effort for what it is and make sure that they are not doing this in our name. They are not doing what they are doing to persecute students and make Jewish students, frankly, less safe by taking away funding for crucial things that our universities, our higher education needs. And I urge you to stand up with our universities and our colleges and our K through 12 schools in defending DEI policies, in defending our rights to free speech and free protesting of actions that we know are making every student on our campuses less safe rather than more safe, using this guise of fighting anti-Semitism, not in our name.
Hear, hear. I love it. Thank you for that eloquent statement. Thank you for calling me a mensch. Thank you for promoting me to a member of the tribe. I'm actually not Jewish, but I'm honored that you would make that mistake. So look, college anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism in general, right-wing anti-Semitism, these are all real problems, and we've got a lot of work to do, but a lot of things are hitching a ride on the problem of anti-Semitism, and the issue is being very cynically and cravenly weaponized by this administration to really just police free thought and to do all kinds of targeting of political opposition and resistance. So it is really a disingenuous campaign that you're seeing targeting higher education. I think every university should constantly be reflecting about doing a better job of confronting hate and anti-Semitism, but this is not what that is about. Jamie, you're pretty close to this. You are a member of the tribe, so let me defer to you.
But first, I want to thank you for an extremely powerful and important statement that you just made. The charge of anti-Semitism has been weaponized to try to tear down democratic institutions. That's what's going on right now. You read Harvard's complaint that they filed yesterday. It was all about how it got into the complexities of the nightmare terrorism October 7th, then the protests that followed, and then the charges on different sides, and they said, we've done a lot to try to address the problem on campus. That's got nothing to do with Donald Trump trying to cut billions of dollars in medical research and scientific progress at Harvard University. It's got nothing to do with it. So they're using it as a pretext, and they're using it as an excuse and an alibi for an attack on higher education in America in a very dangerous way, as you say. So I'm proud of what you just said. I'm proud of all of the Jewish groups that have been standing up for the victims of immigration persecution by this administration, including Mohammed Khalil, the young woman at Tufts, a bunch of people who are being swept up, and they're trying to deport them from the country because they wrote an op-ed or they appeared at a protest. And the Jewish groups, student groups, some of whom disagree with them, some of whom agree with them on the Middle East, but all of them are saying they cannot be punished for their free speech in the United States of America.
All right, I think we have time for 2 more.
I have a veteran right here who's been waiting.
Mahmoud Khalil.
Mahmoud Khalil.
Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil.
Okay,
All right.
we have time for one last question.
Hello, I'm Reverend Edgar Welty.
Where are you?
And I had,
Right here.
and I had a
Thank
thought that kind of shocked me because I'm a liberal. May, God willing, Trump will be burning in hell before long.
Well, you know, I know that I know that Jared is somewhat of a fan of Ronald Reagan Jr., who speaks for what's the name of his group? The
Freedom from Religion Foundation.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation, and when he goes on TV, he says Ronald Reagan Jr., atheist, not afraid of burning in hell. I don't know exactly why Donald Trump doesn't experience that same fear, but evidently he does not. But thank you for your service to the United States of America in this life. So.
Last one.
I think we're at the last
one.
question.
Thank you so much. What a privilege to stand in this room where truth is being spoken. When I was an undergraduate at Columbia, I learned the quote, I think it is, Malcolm X said, "I'm for truth, whoever tells it." And I also want to echo Honorable Jamie Raskin, closing impeachment remarks, quoting Dar Williams. I'm wearing a Dar Williams t-shirt with whom I grew up, saying, sometimes truth looks like a second chance. So here's to our truth, the truth of our democracy. And thank you for everything you're doing. And could you please also stand on the Capitol steps with about 48 other friends every other week and say, this is what we're doing, this is what is happening, and this is what you can do. And that leads me to my final question. These pink sneakers traveled to 2,460 doors in the 107 days that Kamala and Tim are running in 6 swing states on 9 trips. Before that, I went to Central District 22 in the rain for Rudy Salas. I have done everything one person can do, and all of us want things to do. We're going to protest, but what else can we do? Can you go on podcasts regularly with Republicans and change their public sentiment? What can we do, please, to change public sentiment? And thank you.
All right. Close it. Yeah. Why don't you take it away, Jamie.
Thank you for that beautiful statement. Thank you for wearing Dar's words on your T-shirt. I will text her right afterwards and tell her. All right. I'm sorry? Who's in charge here? I don't want to do the wrong thing. They're calling time on us. I'll hang around.
I'm a student of the college.
Okay. Okay.
All right, we're going to squeeze in one last question here.
But I will answer your question. I very much want to answer your question.
My name is Harry. I'm a student of the adaptive program here. It's the nation's number one program. We do yoga, we do swimming, we do exercise, and it helps a lot of people with really bad situations get better. My classmates asked me, should we be scared if they cut off federal funding for us?
All right.
I'm going to jump in on that, and then I'm going to pass it over to Jamie. We'll each kind of close us out. But look, I know people are scared. And when you see what's going on with Doge and back in Washington, all of it, there is reason to be afraid. We should be very grateful that we live here in California, where I know that between the College of Marin and our state government and our local community, we are going to do everything we can to maintain our social safety net, to support the disabilities community and everyone else who's going to get caught up in these crazy policies. I will do my best to fight against all of it back in Washington. I know Jamie will too, but we'll do it together with a state and a college and a local community that is absolutely committed to supporting you. I promise you that.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your question, and thank you for everything you're doing here at the college. People ask me a lot about the fear thing, and I've thought a lot about it, And I think it's good for all of us to feel some fear, like Senator Murkowski said yesterday. It's good for all of us to be a little afraid because these people are terrifying, the program that they have. But we can't allow the fear to paralyze us. The fear has got to be a motivation to take action with courage. Fear and courage are not opposites, right? Courage is just feeling the fear and then getting in a group of people and deciding to move forward anyway. That's what courage is, right? So the opposite of courage is cowardice. And those are a lot of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle who they feel the fear, but they're not doing anything about it. Okay? And the people in this room are doing something about it. So tell them they can be a little bit afraid, but the people of California, I'm certain, like the people of Maryland, are going to stick together, and we're going to show that we can have solidarity and community and get through this problem that we have with Donald Trump. So, I just want to say to my friend here, yes, I want to say to my friend here, let's see. Well, when people say to me out on the road, what's the one thing we can do? Tell us the one thing we can do. And if I really have to boil it down to that, I say get in a group that will know what you need to be doing every single day. It might be traveling to a district in Southern California. It might be going to Utah or Nevada. It might be getting on the phone. It might be going down to the post office to defend the post office. It might be going to the Social Security office to defend the Social Security office. It might be registering everybody to vote for the next 40 hours. We don't know on any particular day. It might be going to a courthouse. So get in a group where you will know what needs to be done on any particular day. And I want to close. You've inspired me to remember something about my son, Tommy, and I want to thank everybody for your kind words. My friend in the back of the room, thank you for what you said, and my friend back there who read my book about Tommy and about January 6th. Tommy had a favorite passage from Wittgenstein, where Wittgenstein said this. He said that the truth of an empirical proposition is whether it corresponds to reality. The truth of an analytical proposition is whether it corresponds to the rules of logic. But the truth of a moral or political proposition is the courage with which we act to make it real in the world. I want to thank you all for acting with courage every day. And thank you, Jared Huffman.
Beautiful. All right, folks. Thank you all. Jamie Raskin, thank you. If you're not already signed up on my email list, please go to my website. Just type in Rep. Huffman, sign up. We want to keep in touch because we're going to be doing more of this and a lot of other things. Thank you for being here today.